Hey, Lisa, how's it going?
It's going all right. How are you?
I'm good. So we're back with the What's Your Grief podcast yet again.
Yet again, we'll spare rehashing all the history of our on and off background of the podcast.
Right. But the important thing is we're here now, right?
Exactly. We're here now.
It's the holiday season. So what better time than to come and talk about grief, right?
Yeah. I mean, it does seem like the griefiest time of the year.
Yeah. That's such an interesting way of putting it.
It's so true. I think that and it does just seem like a lot of the weight around the holiday season. It is that combination of a lot of joy and a lot of sad, and that has always been true. It's just, I don't know, in some of the messaging, for whatever reason, I think we internalize it differently. Like we internalize it like we're supposed to be happy, even though there is a lot out there that shows the reality that like this is actually a really complicated time of year.
Well, we talk about values all the time, right? And how the things that we value the most in life are a place where we can experience the most purpose and meaning and connection and joy, but they're also the places that we care about the most. And so they're the places where we can experience the most pain and loss and hurt. And so I really think that so many things about the holidays are things that we value very deeply. And this is going to be different for everybody. But if you think about like the list of things that are associated with the holidays, like tradition, family, faith, just are kind of the threads that connect us to the past. All sorts of different things are things that we as humans tend to value very deeply. So it makes sense that there would be this space for immense joy and also immense loss and pain. But we don't always acknowledge that pain side of it for a wide range of reasons, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, a wide range of reasons, I suppose, but also I'm not really sure exactly what those wide range of reasons are, interestingly, when I really think about it.
I mean, I think that we grow up, not everybody, obviously, like we all have different childhood experiences, right? But we have this idea of like childhood holidays are all about the coziness and the comfort and the warmth and the presence to some extent, depending on what families do, and about being together. And this is obviously not everybody's experience, right? But I do think we often have this picture, and kids, I think at the holidays tend to be kind of shielded from the more sad things.
Yes, that is definitely the case. And I have the older that I get, the more I think about that and the more I reflect on how many holidays in my own childhood, my parents were probably, for reasons I'm very aware of now, really grieving and really probably struggling in a lot of ways. And they definitely did not let us see that, or they were working really hard to make sure we weren't aware of that. I recognize that so much, and I see it now as an adult as very much like, I don't know, a double-edged sword, or like it is part of what made many holidays wonderful in my childhood, but also part of maybe sustaining this false expectation that the holidays are always supposed to just be these happy, wonderful occasions that are all about joy and family and togetherness.
Yes, I don't know what it is, why we carry that assumption that it's supposed to be positive into adulthood, because I relate to what you said so deeply. I think about this all the time because I know that my mom was grieving probably quite intensely during my childhood for her own mother. And then I know that my mom had a lot of the similar stresses and worries, like, for example, that I have now about like money and making sure the kids have a good holiday and taking care of all the many things that need to be taken care of for your immediate family and extended family over the holidays. So I know that there was like that burden, and there was that wide spectrum of feelings and emotions going on. But I never, like you said, knew that as a child. When we get to adulthood, we do begin to realize this, but I think we still buy into this assumption that things are supposed to look a certain way. And I'm not sure why we do that. I think our society in general kind of has that, don't be a Grinch, you know, let's be rosy and merry and focus on the things that really matter. And those are important messages. Like, I do agree, like let us focus on the values at the heart of our holidays and our celebrations. Like that, those things are important. But yeah, why does that then make us feel like we can only bring one half of that emotional spectrum into the holiday season? I'm not really sure, because we know it's a mix. We know that. We all know it. You know?
And I mean, I guess it's that ultimately, right, we live in this culture and society that would rather pretend that happiness, like full happiness, is attainable on these sorts of special days, or maybe just in general, than saying like, wait, authentically capturing that these holidays often reflect the full range of human emotion, is valuable. I think we would rather say like, no, we want to pretend and make it all happy, rather than authentically convey that it's a mixed bag.
Right. And as you were saying that, I was thinking, like, even when we do the thing where we connect to what matters, right? Togetherness and generosity and faith, even those values are a mixed bag, right? Even those values are a combination of happy and sad, pain and pleasure, for lack of a better word. And I think nowhere do we see that more than we see it with connecting with people and memories of the past, and people who've died, because that is something that I think is a value for many of us who are grieving at the holiday season. That is that mix of things that feel quite comforting for many people, and also at the same time it feels very sad. And I think that's how a lot of our values really are, as they should be, a lot of the things that are at the heart of this season. So yeah, I think it is interesting that we don't acknowledge that. I think maybe to some extent, in the same way that we protect the little ones maybe from hardship, we try to protect ourselves during this time of year. And we are very nostalgic often and connected to the things that we remember being so excited about and bringing us so much joy. And so I think maybe that is a little bit because we are connecting to that previous chapter where things did feel really positive. Does that make sense? Or am I just...
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it does make sense. And I think I've thought about this year quite a bit around Thanksgiving, because I think my memories of Thanksgiving, I have really, really positive memories of Thanksgiving in my childhood and my teenage years, like really good associations. And then I have really terrible associations with Thanksgiving in my 20s. Really, there was just everything radically changed in my life. Certainly my dad died when I was 18, but then there was a string of subsequent losses in my family, other deaths of, both my grandmothers and then extended family members, so that Thanksgiving changed so dramatically in my family. Everything looked different. And I think I sort of swung to this other extreme where after that happened, I was kind of like, okay, I just need to plan for Thanksgiving to always be awful. Because I was like, it's never going to be what it was. Like, it's never going to be this really idyllic memory of my childhood. And so if I keep setting myself up for trying to feel that again or recreate that again, then I'm just setting myself up for failure, which sounds really pessimistic and depressing. But I think is kind of how I've coped with Thanksgiving over the years.
Well, right. I mean, I think a lot of us do that, right? If it can't be the way it was, if it can't be this picture, then I don't necessarily see the value in it or want it. And so I do think a question we often have to ask ourselves, and sometimes maybe we're not ready to ask that question, is where's the value if it's not that plan A, if it's not that ideal picture, where is the value, and what is going to feel comforting still or pleasant and allow me to connect with the value of the day. And sometimes we're just not ready for that, or we don't want to do that, and that's okay too. But I do think that kind of like goes along with this idea of wanting things to be the way they were, right? And when they felt really good.
Yeah.
It's never going to be like that again, because we're grown-ups now, and it's different, and people we love are not here anymore. And that sucks. I want to be I want to be 8 years old again for a day.
Right. Where I was being sheltered, even though I look back and I'm like, oh, I feel sort of sad to realize that my parents were sheltering me from so much. But at the same time, it did create certain wonderful memories. And I guess to be slightly more optimistic, I mean, this year I actually had a nice Thanksgiving when I had braced myself for not a nice Thanksgiving, because that's what I often do. And I was reminded that sometimes the lead up to difficult holidays is much worse than the day itself, and that there is a space to be able to really have things that we value and appreciate, even if they're not exactly the way they used to be. And we can find that gratitude and do all the things that we, like, of course, always talk about. But it can be really hard in the moment to tap into.
For sure. I think it is really hard. And we talk a big talk, but like then in our regular lives, we're just a mess, just like everybody else, right? We can tell everybody, find the middle ground, find the value, but it's hard. Like you said, it is really freaking hard. But I think like you were describing Thanksgiving as being a really meaningful holiday to you. So I feel like when something is really meaningful, it's worth continuing to try. There are other holidays where people might not have really cared that much. Like maybe it's a Valentine's Day. Oh, we never made a big deal, and now it's making me feel really crappy acknowledging this day. Well, if it was never a big deal to you, then it's okay. Like don't worry about it. Just shut your door, stay inside, turn off the TV, read a book until the day has passed. But when it's a day that really does matter to you, when you're ready to try and connect and find ways to make it yours again or your family's again, I think it's worth trying to find that middle. But I think having that mature perspective where you recognize that it's going to be that mix. It's going to be different, and it's going to be a mix, and it's going to suck at times perhaps. But maybe there are times that are going to feel okay as well. And that's going to be an improvement from all these other years where it really was all bad.
Yeah. And I think part of it that's so hard, because as you described, there is that nostalgia or yearning or that idea of what it used to be or comparing it to. And I think sometimes trying to go into these days with a little bit less of that, of certainly knowing there may be traditions we want to hold on to and values that are really important, but being able to say, I'm going to take this year as it comes, of the good things for the good things, and everything else, to just kind of leave it. But to get out a little bit of that comparing cycle, which is hard, because it's like ultimately the holidays are this specific reminder of like what it used to be and who used to be there, and all these specifics.
It's really weird. It's like being asked to relive a day over and over again every year, but it's different. It's the same but different. And so it is impossible, I find personally. I'm a very nostalgic person. Like half my pages I follow on Instagram are just 90s and 80s nostalgia pages. And on Facebook, the only posts I ever get are posts about old houses. And like, so maybe I'm just speaking from like me, but like, I feel like it is impossible not to be drawn back into the past, especially when you're grieving, right? You get out that box of ornaments, you're going to pick up your loved one's favorite ornament.
Right.
And you're going to think of them,
totally.
Not to get drawn into the past this time of year.
Well, and what's complicated is that I think that that's true even when the past isn't idealized and
Right,
romanticized,
right.
right? Like, it's like
Yeah.
the worst. It's like, on the one hand, there are the really wonderful, great
Mhm.
memories that we get drawn to, but then sometimes it's that the holidays weren't that for us. Like, they
Oh,
were
yeah.
awful, and we have terrible memories of really difficult things at the holidays.
Yeah.
And the holidays are still inviting us to relive those things over and
Oh,
over
yeah.
again and be reminded of them. And now sometimes to feel like, instead of trying to recreate them, we're trying to like undo and
Yeah.
reclaim the past by making it perfect
No,
now, which creates its whole own other set of
that's
pressures.
that's so true. I think, I'm thinking about people who talk about how they experience a lot of loss around the holidays. Also about people who never ever had a good holiday. Like, we can grieve things we never had. And so as we grow older, we can continue to, go through certain holidays. It doesn't even have to be winter holidays. It could be any holiday, birthday, whatever. And those holidays can remind us of what we didn't have and wish we had. So absolutely, I think it can be something that brings you back to more positive memories and something that brings you back to more negative memories. And there's not, like, it's just, it is a thing, it is a
Yeah.
thing. And for many people, they don't want to not do it. I don't want to not do it. There's a reason why I do connect so much whenever I can with the past, because it makes me feel comfort and warm and happy feelings for me personally. But yeah, sometimes we need to kind of find ways to cope when maybe we're doing it too much, or it's making us feel bad about what we have in the present, or when, like you were describing, it's kind of like haunting us in a way.
Yeah, and I think being able to say, how do we exist in the present, right? Of how do we exist in this present moment, not trying to recreate something that's gone, not trying to put pressure on ourselves to create something perfect that we never had as a mark that we've moved beyond our difficult past. How do we instead just kind of figure out what we need in a way that's going to acknowledge that there's going to be wonderful things, there's going to be sad, hard,
Mhm.
complicated things, and how do we stay present and authentic and connected
Yeah.
and take care of ourselves within all of that. I mean, I think that's really
Yeah.
the hard work of the holiday season, is to create space for all of that.
Right. And I think that one of the things that is it's hard for us to talk about, like, how do you spend the holidays? How do you take care of your holidays? How do you, what should you do over the holidays? Because it is going to just be so unique to the individual. It depends on the holidays that they celebrate. It depends on how they feel about the holidays. It depends on how they felt in the past and how they feel in the present. It depends on 100 different things. And so there are going to be people who say, nope, I'm not going to try that, find that middle ground. I'm just not going to do it this year.
Yeah.
And that is a choice that's fine to make for people. But on the other end of the spectrum, we want to recognize there are plenty of people who are like, what are you all talking about? The holidays are like the one respite I have, the one thing that I have to look forward to, the one thing that brings me joy in this grieving life that I have. I don't want to look at them as though they're going to be negative, because that's not how I'm feeling, right?
Yeah.
There can be a bit of a denial in that sometimes, where we kind of put our heads down and say, this is going to be fine. It's going to be perfect. There can be a bit of a denial. And sometimes when we do that, but sometimes it still feels good to us.
Yeah.
And that's okay too, if you're on that other end of the spectrum.
Absolutely. Like, I think that we need respite from our grief. We need distractions from our grief. We need to find those things in our lives that still give us a sense of joy and wonder and meaning and purpose. And if the holidays are that for you, like, one, I'm just really happy for you, but also, like, to be able to just feel grateful for that and to let go of any guilt that might be going with it. Because I think sometimes we feel guilt about the idea of enjoying life when this person or people who we've lost aren't here with us. I think this year in the world, there is so much complicated that we are seeing of the pain that people are experience all over the world, that we all know theoretically is always there. But this year, because of the things that are happening in Gaza and in Sudan and the media cycle where we're being fed so much all the time, we can feel this guilt for enjoying the holiday, or for kind of feeling this idea of this is the most wonderful time of the year. And it can be so important to remember that like our pain is not our connection to the people who we've lost. We have so many connections to them. And when we enjoy the holiday season, it doesn't mean we're forgetting them or leaving them behind or betraying them in some way. It means that we're learning how to carry both our grief alongside with our life now and what we value and appreciate. And we can also recognize all of the pain that exists in the world. And sometimes when we're able to actually better regulate ourselves and we're better able to kind of manage our own grief and manage kind of the holiday season in positive ways, it helps us to be able to think about what are the productive and helpful things that we want to do in the world in service to other people, and to feel like we're making a difference and contributing in the ways that feel important to us. That can all be wrapped up in our holiday season, where we're still very much kind of thinking of others and giving and aware of what our relationship is with the world as a whole. So I think it's important to give ourselves permission to feel just the full range of feelings that might be coming up.
Yeah. I mean, if there was one like thesis of this podcast, it would be that, like, whatever you're feeling is okay to feel, wherever that range of emotion, wherever you are on that range of emotion at any given time, because it's going to change possibly, you know, from moment to moment at times. And so it is okay if you are somebody who's saying like, I can't do it this year. It is okay if you're somebody who's like, I really want to enjoy the holiday season. And maybe, you know, I have moments of grief, but I'm going to focus on, you know, gathering or buying presents or whatever. That's okay too. And then if you're like a lot of people who are kind of in that middle where it's like, I'm trying to connect with the things that bring me joy and comfort while also acknowledging that I'm experiencing a lot of grief. That's okay too. Like, they're all okay, and feeling what you're feeling is okay, and nobody can tell you not to. No one can take that away from you. No one else's opinion, no one else's pain, no one else's happiness or desire to be happy can take away how you actually feel. Well, I will say, this might be a tangent, but I've been thinking about this. Sometimes how I feel, I don't like, you know, sometimes how I feel, especially lately, I've noticed, and I think it's because I am feeling very pulled towards the past while also being pulled towards the future in stressing about the holidays. It's making me very impatient and snappy and irritable. And I've been thinking about this a lot because I don't know that when I'm in distress, my default is like sadness. I feel like sadness can get a lot of understanding and compassion, but when you're just being a kind of jerky, you're making it really hard for other people to be there for you. And you're also making it hard for other people in general. So I will say that sometimes what I'm feeling, I want to acknowledge and try to make a different choice in terms of reaction. Like, you know,
it's like that response versus reaction thing that we often talk about. Like sometimes our, initially, I think because there is so much stress that can come up at the holiday season and emotion and all of this, that initial reaction that comes out can sometimes be frustration and impatience and, all of these different things. And it does take that extra effort to pull back and go, okay, wait a minute. How is this reaction serving me? How is it helping me? How is it harming me? What do I want to do differently with it to try to sometimes shift it a little bit?
And I think in this instance, like a good question for me to ask myself personally is this cutting me off and getting in the way of me connecting with the holidays and the people I care about? And I think in this instance, the answer is yes. And so I have had to have that conversation with myself about like, okay, yes, and how can I find a little bit of coping? One thing that I've talked about a little bit with you, Lisa, earlier was just that sometimes I need to be mindful of like connecting with present moment awareness and not focusing on my stress as much and just focusing on what's happening around me and in front of me. And so sometimes it is saying like, yes, I feel this way, and I would like to feel a different way as soon as possible, because I see that it is getting in the way. And sometimes it's going to be possible to find some coping or to take some space, which is coping, I guess, to find some coping to help you kind of move in a different direction. Sometimes it's not, sometimes it's not. But I do think recognizing that it's okay to feel how you feel. But sometimes you might want to find some of that coping to help you choose a different response, a different reaction, or to kind of get yourself out of that feeling when you can.
Well, and I think to recognize too, and I'm not saying this is what's going on in your case, but that one of the things that does happen sometimes is that the holidays can be about family and togetherness in wonderful ways, but it can also be about family and togetherness with family who we are not as comfortable with, or who we're interacting with, or going to be spending the day with, or visiting, or whatever, who are part of our holiday sphere, that are making things more difficult for us, where it doesn't come as naturally, and it's bringing up a different set of reactions than we feel good about in ourselves. And so there's thinking about how we're going to manage that. And then there's also the importance of just remembering that at this time of year, it's not just about family in that blood family sense. It is about friendships and relationships and found family. And that sometimes I think at this time of year, when we connect with those other people who make us, I don't know, who maybe like connect with like the best parts of ourselves, or make us feel a little bit more like the best version of ourselves, or a self that's a little less stressed or a little more grounded, like that can help to be a little bit of a counterbalance to some of the other people and stressors that are maybe pulling us in a different direction.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's it's counterintuitive to think of people as a coping tool from people. You know what I mean? Like the holidays often do cause you to come into close proximity with family, but not necessarily family that you have the most easy relationship with. Maybe it's more distant family. Maybe it's people who you are connected by blood, but don't have a lot you feel in common with. Maybe it's people who don't make you feel supported. So I do think it's a good tool to have the people who you really know see you and support you. And that might be a person you know in real life. It might be a person you know in a community like our Griever Hub. It might be, somebody who you only text once a year, but whatever. Knowing who those people are can be helpful. And also sometimes you just maybe need a break from people. Anyways, I guess the last thing I will say, I feel like we need to say in every podcast, every conversation about the holidays is just, I think, a good way to mix the past with the present is to find those ways to bring loved ones who are missing, whether it's somebody who's died, whether it's many people who have died, maybe it's somebody you're just separated from. But a good way to kind of bring that past into the present is to find ways to involve people we're grieving in our traditions and in our rituals, whether those are collective traditions and rituals or individual private things that we do. I think that is something that can really help us to connect and provide a sense of meaning and purpose. And so we just encourage people to take a second to think about what they might do, how they might do that. We have tons of articles about this if you're really looking for ideas, but the ideas that resonate the most tend to be the ones that are really specific to you and to the people you're grieving. But I feel like that's the last thing I really want to say.
Yeah, no, I always think that certainly thinking about those connections is just a good place to start and end thinking about the holiday season, and knowing that yeah, it can look like whatever you need it to look like, but keeping those connections and remembering that if the person you lost, if they were someone who really did help to take care of you during the holiday and support you and ground you, of just thinking about the ways that you can try and do that for yourself, in their absence, whatever that might look like.
Absolutely. And we've talked about a lot of different things kind of broadly and abstractly, but if you ever want more specific stuff about things like coping tools and being in the present and grounding and things you can do to honor your loved ones and coping at the holidays, we have hundreds of articles on whatsyourgrief.com. Go search there. They're free. And you can always also email us at whatsyourgrief@gmail.com if you have specific questions, and we'll try to get back to you. Or you can also check out our Griever Hub. It's a membership site where we do, so much there. We do a lot of different in-person things, a lot of different things that are more discussion-based. But we, it's a good outlet for kind of asking questions, getting support, getting feedback, things like that. So